I'll just press record. Hello everyone and welcome to the next in our series of interviews. I'm really looking forward to today's interview with Darryl Cooke, the founder of gunnercooke, who is, I suppose, in many ways technically my boss, because I met Darryl about 7 years ago when I joined gunnercooke myself. So I'm not going to say too much about it because that's for Darryl to share with us. But I'm hoping he's going to share a few things with us today. So first of all, how you actually go about setting up your own law firm, because I know that's something some lawyers do say to me is, you know, a possibility for their future or something that at least like to know. Is it very difficult? Is it very easy? What's involved? Those sorts of things. So I'm hoping Darryl will share some of that with us if he can think back to about 10 years ago when gunnercooke was in its infancy. And also then we're going to speak to Darryl about his new book, because that's all about innovation in law firms and what the future is for law firms. So I think that would be really useful for people to listen to as well. So Darryl, if we can just start off, would you mind just giving us a bit of a potted history as to your legal career up to this point at gunnercooke?
Thank you, Hannah. Technically, you're a boss. I never even realised. Potted history. I'm so old now that it's hardly that potted, actually. But probably like a lot of people on the call here now, I was kind of passionate about being a lawyer. Always wanted to be a lawyer. Well, once I got over the fact that I wasn't going to be a professional footballer, I did want to be a lawyer. Loved university, loved free representation units, citizens advice bureaus, helping, etc., etc. But kind of didn't know what sort of lawyer I wanted to be. So initially started off at the bar in London, in commercial chambers, Fountains Court, and then in criminal chambers. I didn't even know what sort of law I wanted to do, and took a tenancy in Old Square. But then I went into industry. So I did that for 2 years. Wanted to try different aspects. So I went to what was I think the third or fourth largest company in the world, a big multinational called Herx, a German company. Loved that. That was really interesting. Was on the board of a number of companies there, which was really, so it kind of opened my eyes to business, which I really enjoyed. Really enjoyed business. I was, I suppose, company secretary or director of about a dozen of their companies at the time. That helped me. I did an executive MBA with them at the time, which really helped me as well. But I felt that I needed to come into private practice because it was not something that I'd done. And I came into private practice in the city with a firm at the time called also Wilkinson, which was a precursor to DLA. Worked there and got into private equity, which was very early stages in private equity. And actually it was a real shock, I have to say. Going into private practice was an immense shock, because having been places where I'd kind of kept reasonably good hours, I was able to do what I wanted to do in the evenings, which was play football or work with charities or go to the theatre, kind of all disappeared. I was in the office till 9, 10, 11 most nights. And I just kept moving firms, actually, thinking it would probably get better. Went to SJ Berwin, went to Adelshaws, was at Adelshaws 12, 14 years on the board there. Went to DLA and eventually to Hill Dickinson. And I have to say, to be quite honest, the grass was never greener, Hannah. It was always a very, very tough environment. And I gave my life to it. It designed my life rather than the other way around. So it was a tough environment.
So that brings you up to the last place you were at, you say, was Hill Dickinson.
Yeah.
So then from there to gunnercooke, how did that all happen?
So what really happened when I was at Adelshaws, I started to think there must be a better way of delivering legal services. I still can't quite my head around how the traditional law firms do it. The way they treat young lawyers in particular, I feel, is a kind of an immoral approach. In, you know, you have to do this many hours and you have to do this much business development and you have to do this pro bono. It kind of, you know, I think it makes family life really difficult, but it also sucks the personality out of a person, I think. So I began to think about how we could do things differently. I didn't think it was a great service for clients. The chargeable hour service, I think, is not a great model to go to clients to. And, you know, I spoke to about 56 CEOs, heads of legal, corporate financiers, etc. And I used to ask them 2 questions. The first was, what do you dislike about lawyers? Which is a really strange and dangerous question to ask. And And then I said, what would you do differently if you had a chance to do it differently? And it was really interesting. There was kind of a lot of really consistent messages came back. They weren't necessarily as interesting. They weren't necessarily critical of the size of fees. They were very critical of the uncertainty around fees, which was a chargeable hour. So we developed a model which was around seniority of lawyers, because they did want seniority of lawyers when they're looking for things, around the certainty of fees, and around, I remember they used to say that lawyers say they're very commercial, or law firms put out how commercial they are, but the reality is that they're not commercial animals. They're not as holistic as other professionals. So we developed a profit share model. The benefits around all those things was for clients, but the really major benefit, as you know, Hannah, was you suddenly, rather than have someone design your life for you, you suddenly had the opportunity to design your own life. And that was, to me, the most amazing thing. It was almost by accident, I think, to some extent. Mm-hmm. But, the stories I get back now from lawyers in the firm, they've suddenly been able to write books, they bought dogs, they pick up their children from school, they do all sorts, they just come into the office very occasionally to catch up with people. Just completely change how lawyers work. And I think and I hope you'd agree, and I think it creates happier lawyers, it creates more balanced people, and actually enjoy what they're doing. And the reality is, as well, the knock-on effect was 95% of our lawyers now earn more than they did previously. And over 50% earn twice as much than they did previously. So it kind of works financially as well. So that's where we're up to. And sorry, just to finish on that, Hannah, we're now at about, I think we're 200 partners. We're about 50 legal counsel on top of that. We've got 45 management consultants, a small coaching firm, and quite a large charity. So it's become quite a different group now.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I can't disagree with anything you've just said, having been an old hand at Gunner Cooke myself, and I'm on, I think on average, about 3 times more than I earn in practice, and I do that on about 3.5 days a week, if that. So, it works, definitely. I love how you said it was actually an accidental thing, that the lifestyle of the lawyers and having happier lawyers and things like that, because you really did design it with the clients in mind first. It was first of all about the clients, and it was accidental that the lawyers are happier.
Yeah, I think that's right. I was as a private equity lawyer, became a bit disgruntled how the traditional firm treated their clients. I think, I would do a deal where I would go around the firm and get quotes. I'd end up with a quote of 140,000 or whatever by the end of it, because of the fee creep and the way the model operated. I was having to go to clients and say, we've got 230 on the clock. Can we talk about it? I'd fall out with the client. I'd fall out with the finance director internally, fall out with everybody, a disgruntled client. And I just felt it wasn't the way to work. It just wasn't the way to operate a law firm. So that's kind of what started it. That's what drove it. But then the knock-on effects far exceeded that. Now I think we're driven by, as you know, we talk about happiness a lot in the firm. I mean, we really do want lawyers to be happy. I think I always use the quote, you've heard me, Hannah, when I say that the Dalai Lama says, we don't know the meaning of life, but we do know the purpose of life, and the purpose is to be happy. And we've got one life. So what we try to do is to create an environment where lawyers can really, really enjoy being lawyers and be people in their communities, have good friendships without the kind of the bureaucracy and the pressure that law firms put on them.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think, this is not on the script, but I'm sure you'll have an answer. Is that where traditional firms are going wrong, do you think? If we started Gunner Cooke with the clients, first of all, the first thought was clients and client service and what clients wanted, what are traditional firms doing wrong? What's their sort of driver if it's not clients?
I think the traditional firms start with profits per partner, the larger firms. And, it was 1985, the American lawyers started to publish profits per partner. And actually, if you think about it, it's quite an obscene and immoral way to go about things. So they really, and particularly when we, I talk to a lot of London lawyers now in particular, and they have this dreadful term beasting for young lawyers, which is just really how hard they can work them, how many hours they can get out of them, because then it earns more profits for the partner. And they don't think about the client. And I think if they step back and thought, well, what's the value you bring in here? How are we doing a better service? I mean, we are service obsessed. We, as you know, Hannah, in the firm, we use NPS as a measure. So we have the industry average is 19. I think we have a measure of 85 this month. And that's what drives us, giving a better service. The world class is supposed to be above 80. We've consistently been above world class. It's about the service we give, and we're obsessed by that.
Yeah, super. So just to go back to the sort of very start of Gunner Cooke, what did that look like? I think you've told me the story before where you started off in one of your friends' offices. You had a desk in one of your friends' offices originally. How did that all?
Yeah, I mean, I think if there are people on the corner, I really would encourage people to think about how they work, either set up their own firm or join a Gunner Cooke or similar, because you get control of your life, and that is the most important thing, I think. So you have to start with the passion and the desire of what you're trying to achieve. When you do start off on your own, it is very, very difficult. And I think, and I don't think, and it is interesting because, you could argue that I'm risk averse, but I'm not at all. And, we managed those first few months very, very carefully. So it was all about the clients again. I didn't start it till I knew I had quite a number of fees that were going to follow me, and how I was going to service those clients. And what we initially did was, we started with Sarah, but she in effect didn't start till quite a few months after, and she was working in London for someone else part of the time because she needed the income. I was living off my reserves, and I borrowed clients' friends' offices actually. Field Fisher as they are now in Manchester, but at the time were Heason's. I borrowed their offices and I borrowed their lawyers. And I led a number of deals using their lawyers to start off with. And then a friend, an IFA, lent me his offices in St. John Street, and we started there. And, it was very difficult. I remember kind of walking back, I'd been an equity partner at these firms for years. And I remember walking back with empty bins in my hand. I remember walking back with an empty bin in my hand once, and my old senior partner stopped me, and he didn't know whether to throw money in it or whether to feel sorry for me or what. And it was really tough, it was really difficult. For 21 months, I have to say, I didn't take a penny out of the business. But I was able to do that, and I kept putting money back into it to get it developed. It's a lot harder if you start your own business, but I would encourage you to do that. And I do think it's a really good thing to do. Think about the clients before you do it and bring them with you. I went around and spoke to so many clients before we started, so that they were on board. They wanted us to succeed. And, we had a lot of work before we launched. We knew we had a lot of work to start with.
So there's some advice there for anyone thinking about it, which is, presumably you've got to be pretty dedicated to the idea and passionate about it, because it's not going to be easy. Line up clients and work, be ready for what effectively is, some hard work with little return for a while.
And I don't want to overplay it. I mean, I think if you're passionate and excited about it, you will really enjoy it. You'll get the most out of it. There's a really good book. I think it's called something like The Power of Why by Simon Sinek. It talks about why you're doing it, and I think that's right. And I had a little bit of that beforehand, and then worked that why out in the first 12 months, and that continued to drive the vision that we were trying to create. And I think so understanding that passion and that why you want to do it is a real driver. And then you've got to kind of measure the risks that are going to come along.
Yes, absolutely. Well, like with any business, I suppose, isn't it? It's yeah. So in terms of the pros and cons for someone thinking about starting their own firm, so some of the cons are certainly that you might be emptying the bins yourself for a while and doing all those things. Which, have you gone from a law firm environment where you've been maybe quite senior to going to doing probably everything yourself at first while you're building up? That's sort of one of the pros. What are one of the cons? Sorry, what are the pros? What are the good things?
The pros are, that it is your business, it's your passion, you're satisfying. You'll get, I used to get a lot of excitement about winning a new client, but you suddenly win a new client and it's your business and it's 10 times more exciting. You care for your clients more. You really do feel like family to you. You do start to care for them. As we talk in the business a lot now about becoming trusted advisors to clients. And I think that is the absolute key, is the personal service that you're developing to clients. We talk in Gunner Cooke about the Gunner Cooke prism, which is, at the start of your career, you've got to be a good technical lawyer. That's what you're really trying to do. And then you move up and you're trying to add value from a technical point of view. And then you move up and you try and add value from a business point of view. And then you become a trusted advisor to the client. And then ultimately you become a personal advisor. So you're trying to get to the point all the time where clients will ring you up and wouldn't dream of going anywhere else. But, you suddenly, I think you're more driven when it's your own firm to want to do that, to want to make your clients really, really happy. So that is the really fun part. The other part of it is the massive flexibility. I mean, and I think it is. I always look and think that we live now the world's changed. I think in the 90s, we used to talk about work-life balance. And I kind of think that's kind of disappeared now. It's a 24/7 lifestyle. So we're always on. People always can contact us, out of hours. And that's fine. I think you just have to live with that and manage it to suit you. So that could mean that, lots of our lawyers will do this, take Friday off if you want and go and play. I went through a habit of, used to knock off 2:00 on a Friday, I'd play golf and have gin and tonics afterwards, and it was fantastic. You do whatever suits you, but then I might be found working on a Saturday or a Sunday or whenever it fitted into my timetable and my lifestyle. I think in the end, you may end up working more. Some people do, some people don't. That's entirely, but the point is you're designing it yourself. So that flexibility is absolutely, immense in designing your own life rather than being told what to do. And the only person you become answerable to is your client, and they become like your family.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it hard in practical terms to set up a law firm, with the Law Society and the regulations and all the things that you need to do? Is that very difficult?
I've always been very good, Hannah, at getting better people than me around me.
Yeah.
I think that is a really good secret. So, got very good executive PAs involved very early on. I think it is, there is a level of bureaucracy. It clearly isn't that difficult because they're doing it all the time. But there's a level of paperwork that you have to complete. The hardest thing that we found at the time, and it was because of a specific reason, was getting PI insurance, because the largest PI insurer had just gone under at the time. And so all the others were taking advantage of it. And it was quite difficult to get PI insurance at a reasonable price. So that was the hardest thing we found. But actually, once we got a good broker, and I think it is important to get a good broker, that became a lot easier. The paperwork was just paperwork. And actually, I have found, I think, from what I talked in the firm, the SRA have become, I know they're still a bureaucratic animal, but they've become better over the years. They've become more interested in firms like ours, alternative type of law firms, more interested in innovation. The law is still way behind on innovation. And in the SRA, I think, recognise it and try to help and be as helpful as possible.
No, I've heard similar. I don't know the details of it, but actually one of my former trainees has now set up his own firm quite recently. And he's mentioned that actually even since he's done that, they're bringing in an even more simplified process, apparently, the SRA. So it might get even easier.
I spoke and I was very impressed. I don't really get involved in the SRA that much, but I spoke at one of the conferences last week, and the guy who opened it announced that various their handbooks, they've kind of taken 200 pages out, and the whole aim was to reduce the size of the bureaucracy. So they are clearly going in the right direction.
Oh, super. So it might become a more easy option for people than perhaps it was in the past.
I think so. They still have it. You intend to be a sole trader. They still have a slightly more bureaucratic approach to sole traders, because I suspect most of the issues that they face come from sole trader organisations.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a lot of the people that I've been speaking to before I put this series together are sort of 5 to 8 year qualified level lawyers, because they're the sort of people who are sort of typically trying to decide what their next steps are. So they've sort of qualified, they've got themselves used to their area of law, their practice, but then they get to the stage where they're sort of, what next? You know, what does my future look like? So what would your advice be for the sort of 5 to 8 year PQE lawyers thinking about their future?
It's exactly the right time, isn't it? Because at 5 to 8 years, you're a capable lawyer. You know, you can take clients through whatever your specialism is from beginning to end. So the key is always, the key is your clients. And I think, we talk, when people join the organization on day one now, we'll say, you're no longer a lawyer, but you're a lawyer and you're a business person. We talk a lot about processes and winning clients. And I think at 5 to 8 years, you should no longer be relying on partners and other people to give you work. You should be out winning your clients yourself. So I think even before you make a move, whether you make a move to a gunner cook or whether you start your own firm, I think you should give yourself a real... There's a guy on the TV called Marcus Lemonis who invests in lots of businesses. And he says, any business is about people, it's about process, and it's about product. So it's absolutely right. So what is your product? So Gunner Cook has a very different product than the rest of the market. That's what we sell into the market. It's incredibly powerful. Your people yourself, so you have to look after yourself, health-wise, discipline-wise, motivation-wise, all those things. But then you need a process. And actually, it's really interesting that lawyers are not very good at process in this area because they've just not been taught it. So I'd almost look at it if it was going to go on my own, I'd almost say, well, I'm going to give myself 12 months to do this. And for 90% of that time, I would be developing process to win and get close to clients. As a result of that, you'll enjoy it more, you'll probably get more money from where you are, but then I'd keep those clients close so that when you move, you can take them with you. So I developed that early process. Yeah, and then actually, have you got the motivation to do it? Yes. And if you have, then again, look at the process of setting it up and how you do that. What do you want it to look like? We have, you've seen these, Hannah, actually, we've probably started them in the last 9 months. When everyone joins us, we have what's called a journey to join us. It's a 7-stage process. Sounds more daunting than it is, but we want to make sure everything's covered. One of them is a business plan. At the end of it, we have what's called a VTO, which is a Vision Traction Organizer. It's a 2-page action plan. On page 1, it says, what's your 10-year plan? So you just think, what do I want to do in 10 years? What do I want this to look like? What offices do I want to have? How many people do I want to have? What's my revenues look like? And it also says, what are your values? I think values are really important. We have strong values in our firm, which we talk about a lot. What's your passion? What's your 3-year plan? What's your marketing message? Where is your target? Are you going to target HR directors, your employment lawyer? Are you targeting businesses of a certain size? Where is your message? What's your proven process? What it is, how do you win a client? How do you look after a client? How do you maintain a client? How do you keep the client? What is your process for doing that? Gets you to really think about these things, which is incredibly important. Then on the second page, it's the traction part of it, which is, what am I going to do in this 12 months? What revenues do I want to earn in this 12 months? And what actions do I have to do to achieve that? What actions do I have to achieve in the next 3 months? What are we call them rocks for the quarter? What are the most important rocks that you must do without fail this quarter? And then what are the issues? What are the challenges I face and how to do that? And I think sitting down and writing that, converting your vision into processes and plans is absolutely key. That's what businesses do all the time. It's what lawyers are really poor at. But it's absolutely critical when you start your own business. And if you join Gunner Cook or a firm like Gunner Cook, it's really important to do that.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think that's something I've learned over the last few years, being in a different model, but that I think can be equally applied to people in more traditional and employed models too, which is think of yourself as a business. And like you say, with the Vision Traction Organizer, it's a plan. It's a way of planning your 3 months, 12 months, 5 years sort of thing. And there's no reason you couldn't be doing that in practice too, with your own clients or thinking about your own practice area that you're developing, whether you're going to go very niche or whether you want to keep more broad, but at least having a thought about it and making a decision and having a plan. Because I think I speak to so many people who assume that, the clients belong to the firm, and certainly where I've worked before, the firm is very keen on making sure the clients belong to the firm. but that is a more experienced lawyer's job, I suppose, is to create those new relationships for themselves that are there for their future, whether they stay in that organisation or whether they move somewhere else.
And I also think it's incredibly satisfying. You know, I kind of look back to when I was at school, and the thing I enjoyed the most was not necessarily doing the work, it was preparing my timetables and plans. But this time you have to do it. So, you know, you prepare your plan, your time, and it will drive you, and it will drive your motivation. And you almost can't fail then. I think if you don't set off with action plans, there's a chance that you will fail. But if you have all that in place and do all that thinking. So there's a really famous phrase that Vistage organization for CEOs talk about, and they talk about being on your business, not in your business. In your business is when you're advising your clients and you're doing your day-to-day work. But you need, if you're setting up your own business or joining Gunner Cooke, you need to step outside, step away from it, and all the time think about being on the business. How am I serving my clients? How am I going to win new clients? How am I going to get, you know, my Friday afternoon off? You know, all these things you need to start being on the business and not in the business.
Yeah. And dare I say, you know, I can't see that many traditional firms would be offering this to their employees. Some might, those that do believe in the more development of their own employees, but I can imagine most of them are more interested in, they want their head down at the desk, doing their work, bringing the fees in. So it is something that lawyers would probably need to start thinking about off their own back if they wanted to.
You've got to do. No, I don't know any. I mean, I've been to enough of them. I don't know any firm that would, and it's kind of not in their interests. And actually, the partners don't even know it themselves. They don't, you know. One of the real problems, Hannah, I do find with traditional law firms is the really poor leadership that's in the law. And I think, you know, if we're really honest about it, I was in lots of law firms. They used to talk about bringing someone in, a CEO in from outside, and they never did, because they always think, oh, they don't understand us or they don't understand the law, which is absolute nonsense. It's a really, really simple business. But what we tend to get in the law is someone is a litigator, a corporate lawyer for 20 years. And then on a Friday night, they're a corporate lawyer. On a Monday morning, they're running the firm. And they haven't got any experience, any knowledge. They just do exactly what's been done before. And it really needs that sort of vision, in my view, to lead these big practices. And if you're going to set up your own practice, if you set your own ambitions and bring your vision to it. And the other thing I would encourage, and you know, we talk a lot in the firm about learning and development, just read really widely. Start to read business books. I didn't realize how many business books there are around until I started. I'd always read a few, but now since we've started, I've read hundreds and hundreds. And they're really good. It is a business, whether you're a Gunner Cooke or setting up your own law firm, it is a business. And so you have to start to think like a business person.
I agree, absolutely. That's a brilliant piece of advice. Do you think there's a role for mentors and things like that for more junior lawyers?
I love there's two things, there's mentors and coaches, isn't there? I think you should have both. I think, you know, mentors are often when you find someone quite senior, 10, 15 years older than you, who will just sit down, have a coffee and guide you and chat to you, and you can learn. They'll give you lots of tidbits. And I think that's really powerful. I've probably got 5 or 6 mentors I still talk to. One chap is 92 and I meet with him probably 2 or 3 times a year. I have to go to his house now and take a sandwich in. But the gems he leaves me with are phenomenal. Coaches are also really good as well. And I think, you know, now when the firm starts, we kind of give them a check-in on the VTOs, but then we use coaches after a 6 or 7 week period to help them. And I would always encourage people to have a coach. It might just be once a month, but people who will challenge them. And perhaps you vary those coaches. You don't necessarily stick with the same one. You can get different ideas from different people. But the people who are outside your business who are going to challenge you. And particularly for people, I find it more natural to be on the business a lot. But if you're not, if you're very client focused and very involved, then you've got to get away from it. And a coach will help you to do that. And mentors as well. So as much guidance as you guidance from books, guidance from mentors, guidance from coaches. And as long as you've got the ambition and then put processes in place, you'll love it and you won't fail.
That's brilliant. So shall we talk about your book for a few minutes about, I know we've probably touched on some of the concepts, but a blueprint for the law firm of the future. So what do you see? What do you see changing that either is going to change or has to change, needs to change? And what do lawyers perhaps need to be ready for or adapting for?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think the book is, a lot of the book is to help. Some really, well, I can't say these things mistaken about my own book, but there's some, because it's taken from lots of other different places. There's lots of really good ideas on how to think and how to innovate and how to challenge yourself and how to challenge your business. But there's one particular chapter where I look at a lot of the areas that I feel really need to change in the law. And it's varies. So it's some of the things that I've talked about. I think the leadership in law firms needs to change, and how they're structured. I think partnerships will, in my view, over time will disappear. I don't think partnerships work, particularly large partnerships. What tends to happen, people, they feel as if this golden holy grail of equity partnership to earn a lot of money, but I don't think young lawyers necessarily want to be in that. I think young lawyers think a lot differently. I think you lose control over your life. What tends to happen, they vote in a managing partner, but as soon as the profits per partner fall, then they vote the managing partner out or whatever. It's just a kind of really backward looking way of developing something. So I think that needs to be looked at. I think I even look at philanthropy. I think philanthropy in law firms is done really badly. They talk about corporate social responsibility, which I think is dead. You know, there's a limit to how many walls you can paint and how many gardens you can dig. And I'm not decrying that, but I'm not sure it's the way forward. Lawyers can give a lot more to charities than that. And so they really need to think about that. Really think about training. And I talk about training in the book a lot. Training, first of all, at university. I kind of feel that it's a fantastic 3 years and an unbelievable opportunity, and a lot of universities waste it. But then some of the law firms can talk to universities and get better out of those universities, and then look at the learning inside. Once lawyers start, you know, we focus almost obsessively on technical training, and there has to be much more than that. You know, you've got to look at service, really look at service, really look at business development, retention of clients, making more rounded lawyers who are kind of far more holistic and understand things far more than the traditional lawyer does. And that's what we try to do now. You know, we have a young law firm, as you know, we try to do that in there. I think marketing is done really badly, if I'm honest. You know, I think generally in law firms, it's all about putting out, oh, we've just won this latest award, or we've just done this deal, or we've just done that. And actually, frankly, clients don't really care how many offices you have. They really want things. Like marketing now, you know, it's very different than it used to be, and your clients become your ambassadors and become your partners. So you've got to do marketing that keeps them on board. IT is certainly, and AI is certainly going to be incredibly challenging. I don't think I think we're frightened of it, and I don't think we should be. You know, I've seen it happen over years and years. Lots of, you know, I remember when I was in industry, my finance director would say, the IT department can come to me and say they want to spend £1 million on IT, and who am I to challenge them? I have no idea. It's like a black hole. And I think the fear of AI shouldn't be there, because the biggest challenge is not AI, it's the culture. I'm pretty certain, in my view, that AI will create jobs and opportunities. What law firms have to have is a really good culture in order to embrace AI. And there'll certainly always be a role for trusted advisors and really good personal services to clients, which is what we're focusing on. But we will use AI that benefits our business. But law firms don't do that. So every firm I've been at has introduced client systems to help them, CRM systems, etc. But because the culture has not been right, in pretty much all of them I've been at, they've pretty much failed pretty badly. So the real challenge to me is not AI, it is still the culture. So I think there's lots of, and there's 3 or 4 other things in the book I talk about, Hannah, which are real challenges for law firms to embrace. One of the things about this, though, is really interesting, is that as an industry, we are really far behind. And a lot of these things are happening in other industries. And we're just really, really far behind. So it's not new to anyone, but we are an industry that's stuck a bit. And people say, well, why is it? Because there isn't a burning platform. So in retail now, there is a burning platform. Retail on high street shopping is really under pressure, so it is really changing. Law firms don't have that burning platform unless a managing partner creates a burning platform and creates change.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you've said there. I was at a talk a couple of weeks ago from someone who specialises in IT within law firms, and he said very much similar to you. We don't need to be afraid of AI. It actually can create opportunities and create jobs, in his view, in law. It is something we should embrace rather than be afraid of. And the other thing is, I think as well, we do put a lot of emphasis on the organisations and the cultures in them. I think individuals have to take a fair bit of the responsibility for themselves as well, which is really what this sort of series was about, was trying to get individuals to think about their future and their career in a really personal way.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, Hannah, actually, because I mean, even within our firm, the people that kind of frustrate me sometimes are people kind of always putting it back on GC Trust, our back office or our marketing team or this to do things for them. And you're right, you've got to take ownership and control yourself. And then, you know, you'll always find the support to help you, but you have got to take. There's a great book, I can't remember, a guy, coach in the US, talks about Michael Jordan and coaching him. And he describes him as a cleaner, that, you know, he would always just not, you know, get round obstacles, knock through them, but he took on the responsibility of doing it. And you're absolutely right. If you want to be successful, and whether you mean success is happiness or earning a lot of money, you've got to take that responsibility yourself.
I think that leads very nicely onto the last question I had, which is, you know, a lot of people, and you yourself know that I'm very passionate about helping people with mental health and things in the law, because, you know, historically it's been very bad profession for that. And as you say, the happiness that we place importance on as a firm. And, you know, I think it's really important because happiness equals more productive. So, you know, it's great for businesses to want their employees to be happy too. But from a mental health perspective, do you or happiness and managing stress and things, do you have advice for lawyers on, you know, either what you do to take care of yourself or what they could be doing to take care of themselves?
Well, as I said, one of the first things is to be able to take control of your life and design your life. So I think that's really important. But there's also, there is an attitude, as you say, and I kind of, and it's interesting, I went on a course a couple of years ago, and ever since then, one of the best things, it was very simple, it was a throwaway comment from someone on the course, that I think it is how you start your day. And when I wake up in the morning now, I literally before I get up for a few minutes, I'll think of all the good things that have happened to me and the good things are going to happen that day. And I kind of say, how good can life get? And it's a really good way of starting the day, and it allows you to cope with lots of things. So I think, you know, attitude is clearly important. Everyone says that attitude is important, isn't it? But then you need a process like everything else to say, well, how am I going to create a good attitude? And that's what I do. You know, like you, Anna, I do a bit of mindfulness. I'm very, very aware now, much more than I used to be. I think I'm really consciously aware of all the good things that happen, and I really make sure I think about those rather than the negative things.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Good morning routine. I'm a huge fan of a good morning routine. I think it definitely makes all the difference. Yeah. I know there is a few people on the call here. So if anybody does have any questions for Darryl, we have got a chat box. I don't know if you've used this Zoom software before, but if you have a look towards the bottom of your screen, there is a little box you can click on that should say chat, and you can pop any questions or comments or anything in there if anybody's got anything. So I'll just hang on for a few seconds while we see if anybody's got anything they want to ask or comments. But obviously we've recorded this session, and I'll email it out to everybody who's on our list and who's interested in hearing it. So potentially, if anybody listening to the recording has any questions, then if they do send them to me, then I'll happily pass them to Darryl and ask him if he very kindly have a look at them.
Please feel free to, you know, if questions come after the call, then please feel free to do that.
Oh, thank you. I've had one question's popped up here. Any future book ideas?
Future book ideas. I'm constantly thinking about book. Actually, I am writing one. I've got a publisher at the moment. In fact, I've got an agent now, actually. But I am writing a book on leadership at the moment. And I'm kind of, it's interesting when you write a book, you learn more, I think, through writing than you do through anything else. So I'm writing a book on leadership at the moment.
That'll be brilliant. Leadership just in law firms or leadership generally in
Well,
business?
I think the idea is, so the book that I've written on innovation is about in law firms, but it's so general as well. So I'd say 80% of it is relevant to anything. So we've kind of agreed with that book that it will go for about 18 months within the legal market, and then it will go to a wider market, and probably do the same on leadership. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely key. I mean, it's an old adage, but it's true that, you know, lawyers become managers with no training at all. It's just one day you're a lawyer, the next day you're a manager. Yeah, there's definitely more thought could go into that, I think. Yeah. Oh, right. Somebody has said, if not at the stage to go on your own, do you have any advice about how to best instigate change from within your firm? So, i.e. better working practices, IT, that sort of thing.
You know, it's really difficult, isn't it? I think one of the things that caused me to leave, I remember I moved between law firms, and I always used to say to myself, and I was running different groups within those law firms, and I used to say, well, look, if I'm a 3 out of 10 as a leader, then I have to report to a 5 out of 10. Otherwise, I'm just going to get frustrated. But important to someone who I consider to be 2 out of 10, it is going to frustrate me. So I think it is really frustrating. And I did a lot of what I thought were good things in law firms that I was at, but they weren't always appreciated because of the hierarchy of it. So my advice would be to kind of look after your clients so much you can, develop your client, and then get when you can and when you feel comfortable, manage your exit. So it's probably not the advice. I think it's, if you go and try to talk to marketing teams and IT teams, that's absolutely fine. I would always use, rather than be confrontational, use a questioning process, challenge people to do things and try and get. There's a great quote by a guy called John Maxwell that says, as a leader, you have to bring people with you. And if you don't, you're just going for a walk. So even if you're internally trying to change things, you've got to bring people with you. And the best way to do it is to be non-confrontational. If you're confrontational, you'll just upset people. But if you're setting up your own firm or moving away, focus on your clients and develop them as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think people who are passionate about changing something, they should definitely try within the organisation they're in. But if they do hit almost a brick wall where they've tried but it's not being accepted, I know you found moving around, the grass wasn't always greener, but I mean, I think even in the sort of 9 years since I've been in what I'd call normal practice, I think things have started to change, and I do hear of firms that are different. So I think I personally have more hope that there might be places out there for people, even who stay in an employed model, but where they can take more of their ideas and their enthusiasm and things. So yeah, I would totally agree with you that if you try it within where you are and you feel you're banging your head against a brick wall, then still think about getting out potentially.
Yeah, look, I was always the sort of person in individual who did try to change things. That's kind of my nature. I'm a little bit more skeptical of you. I was talking to a lawyer last week in London who said, yeah, we have a great working at home policy. It's through all the handbooks, HR talk about it. But if you ask the partners, it means after 9 and at weekends. And so I agree. I think the big city firms and that play at being innovative and talk about it. I'm not convinced they are, but I would hope they are. I'm passionate about law. I just feel that we need to change quicker than we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. There's no other questions popped up there, but as I say, if we do get any afterwards, then I will pass those on to you and manage those with everybody. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to get your thoughts, your tips, and share your expertise.
Thank you for asking me, Hannah, and thank you for anyone that's dialed in. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody, and I will let you have the recording very, very shortly. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.